Welcome back to our Prepare listening audience. Thank you for your continued interest in school safety. This next episode in the Behavior Threat Assessment topic series expands into ways people can share information about behaviors of concern that may prompt officials to initiate the behavior threat assessment process. Anonymous reporting systems have proven to be a critical element of preventing harm. Welcome back to everybody. Today, we are happy to have two of our Maryland Center for School Safety staff members joining us to talk about the Safe Schools Maryland Anonymous Reporting System. This is another episode within our Behavior Threat Assessment topic series, and we're excited to learn more from them. So if we could actually start by having each of you introduce yourself and your role at MCSS. Britt, would you mind starting?
Yeah, sure. My name is Britt Flory. I am a regional school intervention and prevention specialist. As a regional, I work with 4 different counties in the state, and that's Baltimore City, Baltimore County, Hartford, and Cecil. It's a long title, but I just like to consider myself kind of a resource advocate / conduit between the state and the local education agencies. And then I'll pass it off to my colleague, Sandy.
Hello, everyone. My name is Sandy Caldwell. I am the program lead for the Safe Schools Maryland Anonymous Reporting System. I am my official title is School Safety Analyst. So I also follow the current trends, school and student safety trends. And I am also the host of the national statewide school safety tip lines call and group. I'm also the co-host of the NSSA, which is the National School Safety Alliance. It's a group of school safety professionals from each state. So thank you for having us.
Oh, thank you for being here, taking time on this Friday before the holiday break. We appreciate it. So next question for everybody is talk maybe a little broader around how you see the Safe Schools Maryland reporting system fitting into the larger picture of school safety and emergency preparedness.
Sure. So to me, a report that's submitted to Safe Schools Maryland could certainly be the catalyst that alerts school personnel or first responders to some kind of dangerous situation. And so that can then tie into how they have to react, whether that's implementing some of their emergency operation plan or their behavioral threat assessment that they might have to do. So it really helps to bridge the gap between the student's behavior in a school and outside of a school. So we do kind of keep a pulse also on what's happening out in the community or tips or alerts that we get from elsewhere that maybe the school isn't aware of, and then we can tie those together and connect those parties so that they can work together, because maybe if something happens at home outside of school hours, but there are things happening during school hours and those parties aren't talking, then something might be missed. And so this way we can really kind of get that wraparound approach to school safety, to emergency preparedness. Britt, what would you say?
When I think about school safety, the word prevention is always at the top of my brain. And so we're always trying to figure out ways to be preventative in anything that we do, as opposed to always having to be reactive or having to mitigate a situation. And so there's nothing, well, I shouldn't say nothing, but there's, having a tip line to me is such a preventative method that we have at our fingertips to get ahead of some of the things that might come down the pike. See something, say something has been in our mouths, in our brains, in our ears for the last 20 years. And so a tip line allows you to see something and say something about it. And it allows you to do it in a space that you might feel more comfortable doing in that. And that might be from a student, that might be from an adult, that might be from a community member. It doesn't matter. It gives you a platform to share something that might be otherwise harder to share. Think about the things that our students go through on a daily basis. oftentimes those things can be embarrassing, or they're not sure if it's really a safety concern, but they don't really feel like they want to go to a trusted adult with this, because that's always our first step. That's always when we go talk to students, the first thing that we tell them, please talk to a trusted adult. Please talk to a trusted adult. If you feel like you can't, this is another method. So having a tip line, implementing a tip line, spreading the word about a tip line is such a preventative tool that, is so useful to schools all across Maryland.
Thank you. So I don't think we've done it through the episode just yet. Share with folks the specifics on how they can go about making a report.
All right, so to report a tip, certainly you can call in. So that our call-in method, if you want to use that, it's 833-MD-BE-SAFE. So that's 833-632-7233. You can also download the free app. Again, this whole system is free. So you can download the app to any smart device by going to Google Play or the Apple App Store. Or you can report online by going to schoolsafety.maryland.gov, which is the MCSS website. Or you can go to www.safeschoolsmd.org, and that'll take you right to the reporting page, right to the reporting form to fill out.
Great. Thank you. I know, so I'll insert a little bit here too, that Maryland has looked at cell phone bans during the bell to bell during the school day, right? So some concerns that kids who didn't have access to their phone may not be able to make a report. But that online reporting form, though, is available on a computer, on an iPad, or another learning device that kids may have in front of them in class, correct?
Correct. Yes. So that's always a good option during the school day.
Thanks, Sandy. Appreciate that. Let's kind of move to having you talk about the life cycle of a tip, from when it's first received by the individual who takes it to the resolution. So talk to us about how the information flows to a school, flows to people who can take the appropriate actions.
Yes, sure. So the tip is received. So it is submitted either via phone. You can pick up the phone and call and talk to our tip takers. There is a website. So you can go to the website and fill out the form. And there is an app. And something to note with all three of these methods, they are available in other languages. So even if someone doesn't speak English, they can still submit their concern. With the electronic means, you can add photos, videos, or documents to your tip. And so once that tip comes in, whether that's done via phone and the tip taker is taking it, or it's done electronically, our tip takers get it immediately and they triage the tip. That means that they're going to read it and kind of assign it a level. So they will then determine who is the most appropriate party to receive that. In some cases, that means calling the local 911 center. In all cases, the school system will get the tip, or the school itself will receive the tip, so that they are also aware and they can also start working on that. If it's not a high level threat, then it will be sent to the contacts that the school or school system has designated to address these situations. And then from there, the contacts will get the tip and they investigate, and then they let us know that it's been completed.
Yeah, I appreciate that. So talk to us a little bit about how the anonymous reporting system works. What should people know about their privacy when they submit a tip?
Sure. So this is an anonymous tip line. So again, as long as you don't include your information or put some kind of identifying information in there, it is anonymous. And even if you do accidentally put your information in there, we do tell our contacts that you need to ignore that part. You want to focus on whatever the situation is or the concern is, and investigating and remedying that. If you want to remain anonymous, and of course, like I said, it's best, or if you don't want to remain anonymous, I'm sorry, then it's best to report directly to the school or the school system safety and security office. A lot of times people want feedback on their situation, but with Safe Schools Maryland, we do not provide feedback because this is an anonymous tip line, is anonymous system. So if you do require that response, then you do want to report directly to the school or, like I said, the school system's safety and security office.
I think that Sandy hit on everything. That's why it's important for us to get in front of people to explain how the tip line works so that they don't self-identify, that they do understand that there are other channels that they could use if they want that two-way dialogue to continue, if they want to know what actions have been taken. This isn't the place for that. But yeah, she covered everything.
So, this is an anonymous system. We really don't have any idea who is on the other side of that tip. So when you submit a tip, you get a tip ID number and a password, and that allows you to log back into your tip to add additional information. You can add photos, videos, or documents to your tip if that information would help. And so we ask that tipsters do log back into their tip, because most of the time you will receive some kind of response or question just asking for additional information or giving you additional information. We cannot provide updates to tips. So we're not going to say, oh, we called the police for this one, or that student received detention. You're not going to get a response like that, but you may get additional information about resources that are available, or there may be questions from those who are trying to investigate, and it will help them to more quickly address the situation if you log in and you answer their questions.
Great. Thank you for sharing that. So talk to us about what's the biggest myth or misconception you hear from people about reporting a concern or using systems like the Safe Schools Maryland program.
I think the biggest one is that, I don't want to report because nothing gets done. They don't take it seriously. That is not true. There are multiple sets of eyes on each tip, so it is being seen. It is, getting to people who need it. Now, while you may not see the outcome, you may not see what happened, and there are a lot of privacy laws that prevent the contacts from sharing any kind of information. There is action going on behind the scenes. You also have to make sure that you are submitting to the right people. So if it's something about, maybe something happening in the community, someone's breaking into a car at the mall, you don't want to report that to the tip line. You don't want to report that to Safe Schools Maryland. That's a police report. And while we will forward it over, you do need to make sure you're reporting to the proper parties when you make your tips.
I'd say the biggest myth to me is that we get a misconception from the school side that the more tips a school has, the more dangerous or unsafe that it appears. And it just couldn't be further from the truth. In our opinion, the more tips that a school has shows the involvement and the care that the community, the school-wide community, the students, the staff, all take, the pride that they take, the involvement that they take in wanting to keep their schools safe. And so the more tips doesn't mean that this is a problem school or that this is a problem area. The more tips means that a presentation was given, the students took it seriously, the teachers took it seriously, it's used in the proper way, and now you have this tool that can be used to promote school safety. So that to me has always been one of the biggest myths that I've been trying to debunk as I've been Sandy's partner on this tip line journey.
Thank you. Appreciate both of those. And it's important for us to sort of call those out, right? What people may think and what really the reality is. Talk to us maybe an example that you may be aware of how an early report that was made to the system helped to prevent a situation from becoming more serious.
Yes. So on multiple occasions, we've received reports that a fight was going to happen at school that day. And the person reported who was supposed to be involved. Because they reported it early, the school was able to pull in those who were supposed to be involved, and they were even able to help those students work it out, figure out what the issue was. And oftentimes those students at the end of that, it was just a misunderstanding. And so they end up being fine. Sometimes they even become friends. And because this was caught so early, the school was able to avoid the fight, but also the disruption to the school day, avoid injuries, and just that overall situation. So we've had that on a number of occasions. We hear reports also of, we've had some suicide threats, and because we've had the proper people, the proper contacts listed to receive these tips, these situations have been avoided. So the person has received the proper help that they needed. The situation was prevented altogether. And then the school also gets to have eyes on that student to continue to help them. Whereas if it wasn't reported, they may have just flown under the radar and something terrible could have happened. We also hear really great stories from our other state partners who have these statewide tip lines. We've had numerous school shooting plots that were thwarted here in the US and even in Canada. Somebody received a tip to their tip line, and it was about something that was going to happen in another country, and they were able to get it to the right people, and they stopped the situation. So these tip lines really are an asset to our community, to our schools, to our students.
Yeah, to add to that, I think that one of the really great things about SSMD and other tip lines is that students can report about stuff that's happening in their own schools, but they can also report about something that's happening in another school or another state. And I think that that's very useful because sometimes students don't know where to turn. Maybe the situation is too embarrassing. Maybe they don't know who to reach out to because their friend goes to a completely different school in a completely different county. And this tip line allows that person, whether it's a student or a community member or a staff member, to put a tip in that may not have anything to do with their own school, but they know about something going on with a student in another school or another state. And so, like Sandy said, there's that big preventative piece where you're able to touch another student that isn't in the same school. And I think that that's huge. And I think that Sandy participating in the national side of things and seeing some of these trends that start all the way in California or Michigan or Florida, it doesn't matter what the topic of the trend is. It doesn't matter what state it began in. Somehow it will trickle to Maryland. And so by seeing some of these tips come in from other states, by sitting on these monthly national calls, she's able to kind of get ahead of some of these things, these challenges from TikTok or things that they're seeing on Snapchat, and talk about them with LEAs prior to any incidences taking place, or just giving schools the heads up. This is something you might want to keep an eye out for because eventually, unfortunately, it will hit some of our schools in Maryland. And so I think that that's really been such a useful connection, not only between just our local education agencies in Maryland being able to use the tip line county to county, but also using it state to state.
No, I appreciate that. So, Britt, could you share, or Sandy, about how many states have an anonymous reporting system?
Yeah, so there's about 25 states that either have it or they are in the process of getting that program going. So we have about half of the country, which is great because I think when I started, or when our program started, there were probably about 10 or 11. So it really has grown.
Yep. And the clear data, right? Research demonstrating the importance of people being able to report things anonymously has definitely, driven those efforts across the country, as well as other states, right? It's easy to sort of replicate when there's a best practice that's been developed elsewhere. So hopefully that continues to grow. Thank you. That's good. So to that end, can you guys talk a little bit? I know that when an individual makes a report, there's actually sort of a drop down box of sort of categories. And when we do sort of our annual data analysis and different reports that we submit and data we make available, we're looking at kind of these big categories. Could you identify maybe or share with us maybe the top 5 or top 10 categories that are generally reported?
I know a lot of times we're asked for like the top 3. So since the launch of the system, our top 3 have been planned school attack, bullying or cyberbullying, and assault or intend to harm others. And that's in no particular order. But we are starting to see a lot more general school complaints. And we have found that that is a national phenomenon. So not just our tip line, but the other states are seeing that as well. One difference between us and other states is that mental health concerns are not in our top 5, where in other states they are in the top 1 or 2. So I think the difference there is that here students are looking at the action or the reaction from those mental health concerns, and that's what they're reporting versus the underlying mental health condition that might be causing the person to act out or change their behavior.
That's very reflective and thoughtful. And yeah, thank you for sharing that. So an incident of bullying, if somebody has been bullied or knows of someone or has witnessed bullying, that's something that they can report to the tip line, as well as a host of other methods for them to report bully behavior in Maryland. Am I correct on that?
Correct. Yes. So they have a lot of choices when it comes to bullying. There are a lot of different ways to report. So certainly you can go tell someone in the school, you can report to the principal, the counselor, the SRO, whoever that might be. So you have that option, first of all. But if you are, let's say, a witness and you just want to tell somebody and don't want to get involved, there is, of course, Safe Schools Maryland. So you can report that way. If you yourself are being bullied, or you can do this also as a third party, each school system has a bullying form that you can use. And so if you don't want to remain anonymous and you do want a response, that bullying form is really a great method to report that, because that is not anonymous and you can receive a call back or feedback, a response from submitting that form.
Yeah, great. Thank you for kind of talking about that, right? The two systems, right, or two methods can interact, right? So that online bullying form that's available to all of our public schools, but also the tip line, how they can work together. So I know you both have the opportunity to speak to students, parents, staff, related to the anonymous reporting system. Can you share maybe a couple of the key takeaways from those presentations?
Sure. So we do have 30-minute student presentations that cover different topics depending on the age group that we're speaking to. So we cover things like general school safety, bullying, online safety. We cover the difference between reporting and telling, or tattling and snitching, depending on the age group. And then what to do if you see or hear something, who you can report it to, who are those safe people, and then the details of Safe Schools Maryland. So again, these presentations are age appropriate and we can tailor those to meet the needs of the school. So for example, some schools focus on anti-bullying week. So they ask us to do a focus on that in that presentation. So we can accommodate that if they would like. And then again, we cover the process of the tip or of a tip, what happens, how you report, and all the details of that. We do have the parent and adult presentations. So those are quick 30-minute presentations. We do those in the evening virtually. So a school can send out the link. The parents can register, and then we send them the Zoom link to log on. And we like those because sometimes they want to ask safety questions at the end that maybe they don't want to ask to their own school. So they can ask those in that safe environment. Certainly we can't speak to every separate school, but we can give them the information that we do have. So, but as far as takeaways, I think we kind of touched on this before, but this is really a prevention tool. We want people to use it as such. So you want to really report things that you want somebody to look into and report those concerns that maybe the school is not aware of.
I think that a personal takeaway for me is students really do find this tip line useful. Anytime Sandy goes and gives a presentation for a school, we always see an influx of tips come in for that school. And it could be the newness of it, it could be the novelty of it, but the tips are always very good tips. Whether it's something that's happening, outside of the school grounds, it's happening on a school bus. We've seen one that came in about a year or two ago about dating violence. So the message is really well received when we are able to get in front of students to talk about what this tip line does and how a tip line works and how useful it can be, and then also dispel any of the rumors that, kids feel about it. It doesn't go anywhere, doesn't really matter, my school doesn't care. We're able to, try to negate some of the negative energy that's around a tip line. And once students have this in their hands and it feels tangible, whether it's the app or they're calling it in, they do really send in very well thought out tips that are true safety concerns. And so the engagement piece is huge when you're trying to promote a tip line to get it into the hands of a school community.
Safety isn't the job of one person. It's something we build together. We all see different parts of what's happening around us at school, our neighborhoods, and online. And sometimes we're the first ones to spot a concern. Your voice can make a difference. If you see something, say something. Make a report through Safe Schools Maryland. It's always anonymous, always available at 1-833-MD-BE-SAFE or visit safeschoolsmaryland.org.